I am joined by former Socceroo Kasey Wehrman. Thank you for joining me, Kasey.
Thanks, Shannon.
Where did your love for football first start?
Probably back where I grew up in a little place called Cloncurry up northwest of Queensland. I've got four brothers and three sisters, so they made up most of the football team because it was a very small town. But out there, good people, salt of Queensland and Australia, and I always had a football around. I was always given a football every birthday and Christmas with football shoes and shirts and all kinds of things. So I was always interested in it, and that's where the passion started.
So aside from your siblings, did you have any football heroes growing up? If so, who were they?
Not really, tell you the truth. Coming from Queensland, you were staunch rugby league people, and so I was I was probably the only one in the family that went for someone different. My team's the Bulldogs, Canterbury Bulldogs. So my favourite player that I looked up to at the time was Terry Lamb. I love Terry Lamb still to this day, and still talk about Terry Lamb too much. And my missus always says, "Stop talking about Terry Lamb. I don't know who he is," because she's Norwegian, and the family get tired of it as well. But he was probably the first person that or figure in sports. Of course, I had an older brother as well, who was into sport as well, and he sort of dragged me along to things as well. But yeah, when it comes to actually football, it probably wasn't until we moved to Brisbane, and then I started to know the likes of Frank Farina and other people that I said, okay, these are the football side of things. These are the ones that I should be looking after or pursuing after instead of the rugby league guys. But Terry Lamb was kind of my first sporting icon.
Well, I'm a doggies man myself, so I really like that answer. But back on football for a second. So you come through to Queensland Institute of Sport, and then you moved on to Brisbane Strikers in the NSL. When you first transitioned to the Strikers team, did you find the step up to the professional setting difficult at all?
Yeah, definitely. I was lucky enough, and at the same time, not unlucky, but I was surrounded by senior players. I had players like Alan Hunter, Gary Phillips, guy called Craig Williams, Danny Wright, Frank Farina, Rod Brown. All of these guys had done multiple years in the leagues from the early 80s and onwards, mid 80s and onwards and stuff. So I was very lucky to have that introduction to senior football. But there was no easy passage, put it that way. I came through with 3 or 4 other QAS boys as well, maybe more than that, 6 or 7 QAS boys that regularly trained with the first team there. And the older players, they did not hold back on what they thought, and there was no easy outs anywhere there. So it was a steep learning curve, but a fast-tracked one as well, because you learnt quickly on the job, and you had to defend yourself and hold up your end of the bargain when it comes to workload and listening and respect and these kind of things. So it was a great introduction, and I wouldn't have had anything else.
And during your time at the Strikers, you played some pretty exceptional football. So what was it about the club and the setup and everything like that that got the best out of you, do you think?
Yeah, I think touching just back on all those senior players that we had, Frank Farina was newly back from Europe, looking to conquer the national scene, and we had a lot of senior players there that really drove the culture of the club. Bruce Stow was there a little bit earlier from the first year that Frank got there. So Bruce was a staple in Queensland football. And we grew up with a lot of, English style, Scottish lads, English boys, Irish people as well, teaching football in and throughout Queensland. So, a lot of those guys came from the world of hard knocks and getting stuck in, and a hard day's work pays off. So the club was kind of built around that as well. Hard work pays off, and don't give up, and we keep trying. And so that was kind of the culture, and we stuck to it, and we didn't really, there wasn't anything overly fancy about the way we did things, but we had players like the Cranny boys, Sean and Troy, who could run like the wind and run all day, and had a skill set as well. And it just seemed to all the stars aligned at one time and in one moment, and things worked out for us.
And speaking of hard work paying off, it wasn't too long before you found yourself in a national team setup. You made your Socceroos debut against Fiji. So what do you remember about that match? And for you personally, how do you think you went?
Yeah, I don't remember much about the match, to tell you the truth. We played it up in Brisbane, I know that. So we played it at Lane Park, or Suncorp Stadium as it is today. I actually don't remember much about the game, but I know that we ended up not qualifying for the tournament because we were supposed to qualify for the Confederations Cup through that tournament. I had been injured while playing national youth team World Cup starting in Malaysia. I think it was 97. So I was only coming back from an ankle construction, breaking it and all kinds of things. So, I was pretty happy that I could actually get back to a level where I could be picked in the national team. I had a coach that took me from who identified me out in Little Cloncurry, that encouraged my family, which is to come down to Brisbane. Mike Mulvey, who won the A-League in 2014-15, I think it was. I think he messaged me not long before I got into that team, saying that you should learn, make sure you know the national anthem, because I think you're going to get picked in the national team. So a guy with a lot of foresight and a lot of football experience. And like I said, it was a great moment for me, my family. And I was able to play a few times for the national team, and it was exciting.
And after your stint with Perth Glory, you moved overseas to Europe and Norway. So firstly, how did that move to Norway come about?
Well, I'm a pure blood, what can I say? I'm a pure blood Aussie, so I didn't have any European passports or anything like that. So it was difficult to get into the likes of England and whatnot, unless you played national team very regularly for a certain amount of time in these things. So I had an English agent who knew a Norwegian agent, and the Norwegian agent put me on a trial here with a smaller club down in, they were in the top flight at the time, called Moss. And I worked from there. I came over, spent 3 days, and the gaffer came up to me after the third training session and said, "We want you to come. We will, work out the details with Perth Glory, and hopefully you'll be on your way over here." And it wasn't long after that, I was on a plane and shipped across. So yeah, quick and easy.
And how much did you know about the country of Norway before moving over there? And once you got there, was there anything that was a bit of a shock to you, aside from obviously the weather being very different to Perth and Brisbane?
Yeah, obviously the weather was the biggest thing. I mean, I'm from northwest Queensland. No one's even used the word snow out there, never alone seen it or stepped in it or played with it or anything like that. So the weather was a bit of a shock, but at the same time, it is still, and it was at the time, a great experience. And I was lucky in a sense, because we're both kind of very well developed countries. There's a lot of resources in both Australia and Norway, so things went smoothly in that way. Very good people, very easy to get along with. You won't find kinder people in the world than Norwegian people. They are just very down to earth and easygoing. And like I said, they're more afraid of conflict than really getting in anyone's way or causing any waves or anything like that. So maybe I was a little bit loud for them at the time, but I've since been able to mellow out into their culture as well. And like I said, I've never looked back on that. But it was a bit of a shock at the time, especially weather-wise. But the football, it was on every day. It was on for young and old here, and we were training in minus 10, 12 degrees, and it was a battle and a fight as well. You run into the same kind of things here, older players with experience trying to teach younger ones coming through, fighting for positions. So it wasn't any different in that terms from what I came from in Australia, but there was in the terms that there were a lot more kids, there were a lot more players here. There's a lot more, they're not just attracting players from Norway and from Australia. We were running against mostly Australian lads, whereas in Europe, you're against kids from Africa and Europe and all over the place. So it's not just a fight against your local mate that you played against in the QAS. Now you're fighting against some kid from Bolivia or Brazil, and you're trying to get that position on the field as well. So that was an eye opener as well, but helps you grow as well as a person. So I was very excited about the move, and it worked out really well.
And for you personally, did you find it more difficult playing in the heat and humidity of Australia or the absolute freezing cold of Norway?
You get used to it one way or the other. So you sort of adapt to your climate as well. I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt right now. I think it's 12 degrees outside, and we're in the middle of autumn, but I'm like, well, that's just the Aussie way. We don't where I can, I don't put jeans on, but there's a point where you're going out and playing, and you have to have the thermos on underneath and these kind of things to keep you warm, or you will quickly find out that the cold can really sharpen your senses, and you will be in a little bit of strife. But I went back to Australia. I know you're probably going to get that as well, and then it was probably tougher to adapt the other way, where when you're in the colder climates, then you go to a hot climate, like, oof, that really that zaps the energy a lot more. So, there was definitely some adaptation that was going on there. But I suppose the excitement of moving and playing in Europe and doing something different kind of overshadowed that, and you come in the dressing room and they say, now you got to put on this clothes with these gloves and this hat, and make sure you put those on, okay? And if you don't put them on, you're going to be cold. So, and you just listen and do it. And I don't think I've ever been sick. I was probably more sick when I was in Australia through not putting on enough clothes in the short winter that we had there, to what I've been here in Norway, where I've never been sick at all, because you just go, okay, you need to put on the right clothing or you will get yourself in trouble. So, yeah.
Now, back on the national team for just a moment. In 2006, you found yourself back in the Socceroos frame after quite a while away from the national team setup. So, firstly, was it a bit of a shock for you when you got that call up? And when you got into camp, was the atmosphere and vibe different to what you had previously, or was it sort of similar?
Yeah, I think if anything, I was a little bit lucky at the time. They had some injuries within the national team, and Graham Arnold had taken over temporary the reins of the team temporarily, and Arnie must have just seen my name on a list of players that were in Europe, and I was pretty close because they were playing the game in London against Ghana, and I was in Norway. So he gave me a call and said, Case, you want to come over and see some old friends and whatnot that you haven't seen in a while? And I said, mate, be happy to. So I was probably lucky in a way that I was close by and I was fit, that we were at the end of our season here in Norway. So I got to go over, and to tell you the truth, the vibe was the same. I grew up a lot with playing with Brett Emerton and Vinny, Bresh, these boys. So we walked in and it was kind of like the same kind of atmosphere. And I remember I had Shane Stefanuto. He got a few caps, or one or two caps, Shano did, and he was there at the time. And he commented to me at one stage and said, Jesus, you fit in here like a glove. Like, I feel odd walking around here with all these players, but you just walk in like it's nothing. I said, yeah, but I grew up playing with all these boys, so I know them already and I feel comfortable around them. And when you haven't, and you're sort of put into the picture, and you're a young lad that's just coming through in the national team, and you don't know Brecht, and you don't know them, you start to firstly look in awe, and then afterwards you start to get down to your work, and it might take you a few days to get involved. But you find out in the long run that they're top guys. These guys they're down-to-earth Aussie boys who are giving it a hard crack as well, and they've just been really good at what they do, and they're succeeding in Europe. And but they're approachable. So it was a nice little cameo.
Now, a lot of those players you just mentioned, Emerton, Bresciano, Grella. They were also with you in the squad of the 2000 Olympics in Sydney. So what was it playing Olympics in front of your home country, home crowd?
Yeah, I mean, that was amazing. I mean, we started off, I think we played on a Wednesday, we were the first kind of Olympic event that kicked off, and it was, well, we had 95,000 people at the MCG. So when you went out for the warm up, the electricity was just buzzing through your body. And, it's hard to describe the sensation that you get out there amongst all those people, then all pulling for you as well. So, it's still a regret to this day that we didn't do a lot better, considering when you look back on the team that we had. But at the same time, those experiences helped us later on to conquer and get into World Cups, and we're still on the back of that, still burning into World Cups and Asian Championships and winning it and all kinds of things. And that's because of the culture that was set and the players that came from yes, not succeeding, but also learning, growing, and putting that into place in other areas as well, vis-a-vis the 2006 World Cup, with the likes of Viduka and Popovic and the rest of them that were all there, Craig Moores and whatnot. So all those experiences amalgamated into success later on. But of course, it was very disappointing at the time that we weren't able to at least qualify for the next stages and proceed from there.
You even scored at the Olympics as well against Nigeria. Do you remember that goal? If so, can you talk us through it?
Yeah, now and again, my missus will bring it up, or we'll be out somewhere and there's an interesting topic or something, so she decides to bring that up, which is a little bit, not gruesome for me, but I'm kind of a little held back when it comes to those things. But it's nice to remember now and again. I think it was some kind of flick around a player, and Dukes, as usual, holds the ball up like no one else does. I continue my run on just past him, and I think maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it goes to Kasey first, who goes to Dukes, and then Dukes gives it back to Viduka gives it back to me. It's been a while now since I've memorized or looked at it again, but I can remember celebrating. To this day, I never had a shirt on underneath my jersey, and for some reason, don't ask me why, for some reason that day I had on a shirt and I'd written "Hello to Cloncurry" from where I'm from. And I don't know why I wrote it. I've never done it before, never done it after. I did it just that day, and I scored that day. And I put my shirt over my head, and there's a few pictures with me and Stephen Labert, who was a good friend of mine, who we roomed together and lived together and all kinds of things. Vinny Garella running after me as well, me not knowing where I'm actually running because I had my shirt over my head and just flopping on the ground out of excitement, because we leveled the score then as well, because they scored 2 early goals and we got it back before halftime 2-2. So we were thinking, okay, maybe this is a moment where we can really, put the Wednesday game against Italy behind us. Now it's that we lost 1-0, and we can still be in this competition. So, but yeah, it was a thrill, and it's nice to talk about from time to time.
Now, as you alluded to earlier, you did return to Australia after Norway. You signed for Newcastle Jets in 2010. So how much did you know about the A-League before joining, and did it meet your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, I still follow the local leagues back in Australia now. I still follow the A-League back in Australia now. I watched most of the game yesterday with the Socceroos. So I keep a close eye on what's going on. Did it meet my expectations? Yeah, it did. I suppose we're at a period there still where there was a lot of marquee signings that were coming through. I think Del Piero was out at the time. Emil Heskey came just after me. So there was still a good buzz around the place. And the level was good. There's a few teams that struggled. We were the same. I think we finished 7th and 7th. The 2 seasons I was there, always 7th. I think that's some of the Newcastle supporters always say that about Newcastle. They're always 7th again. So just outside of the finals. But the level was good. It reminded me of when I was there before in the old NSL. But I suppose now I was one of the older players with experience and the ones that, are setting the example for the ones coming through and trying to teach them what football is and how you can win, which is one of the main points. But like I said, I enjoyed my time there. Newcastle was a fantastic place. Loved it. We lived not far from the beach area. My girlfriend Anya, who is in Norwegian, she still talks about the Newcastle experience to this day. She actually worked at the stadium, at Hunter Stadium at the time. So we had a really close connection with the football community, the stadium. It was sport. And like I said, it was great to refresh ourselves from, especially myself, being a long time here in Norway. She's from Norway, so she knows it, and refresh ourselves on the beaches of Newcastle. I had a wonderful time and still have good connections there with Ray Bartz, with people from Newcastle and ex-Newcastle players. So, great time, great experience. And the A-League was, still living up to its expectations.
Now, when you left the Jets, there was a lot of speculation in the media and with the press of what happened there. There's speculation about a potential bust-up between yourself and then manager Gary Van Egmond. So could you just clear up what actually happened?
Yeah, I mean, what can I say? I've always been, probably as a player, a little direct with my messaging. And when someone asks me a question, I tend to give an honest answer. And sometimes it's not so clever to do that. So I can definitely take some blame for maybe disclosing a little bit too much of my own personal feelings on what I thought about the style of play we were playing, to how we were doing it, to how we were training. Gary unfortunately had to come in right at the start of the season. We had Branko Klina there right up until the season started. I think that was the season 2012-13. And he took us over, I think 3 games into the season. I think Craig Deans had the team for 3 games. So it was very rushed preparation on the way he wanted to play football, and I thought that it was too rushed, and I didn't think the players and the team was ready for the style that he wanted to play. Looking back on it now, I could easily think about it as a coach right now, thinking, well, it's better to start the implementation of what you want to do straight away than going, okay, let's wait 4 or 5 months, or let's wait until next season, because you can always wait, but why don't you just drive it and put it in? But you got to remember that I was a player at the time as well. So it's the coach's role to sell what he's selling. So we're all salesmen. You're selling a pitch. We're all selling something. And he has to sell the pitch to me as well. And at the time, I didn't buy it. And I felt all of the team and the way we played didn't buy it as well. Probably the thing was that fell out between us is that I was a little bit too honest in an interview similar to this, and said what I wanted to say, and that I didn't feel that we were on the right track at all. And sometimes you can take that as a criticism, or you can take it as, well, maybe he's right here, or maybe he's wrong, or maybe I'm not selling it right. So because a lot of the times when you're a coach, if you walk off the field and think to yourself, okay, a lot of coaches do this, they walk off the field and go, well, I didn't think the players got what I was trying to teach them. If they didn't get what you were trying to teach them, then you were fucking teaching it wrong. Okay. So that was probably the argument that, broke the camel, the straw, the back, the whatever it is. And, Gary didn't really appreciate those comments, which I can totally understand from his point of view as well. So, but communication is important. And, I felt at the time there wasn't much going back and forth. It was more of there was more power games going on than actual, well, let's communicate properly and we can get that right. So we had that under Branko. We had a leadership group. We knew where we stood. We understand what roles were placed in what areas, and we had very good control of that. But, new coaches come in, they want to mix things up. They want to try a different thing. No problem, do that. But communicate it properly and get the message across right, get the right people behind your program, and you can be a success whether you want to play long ball, short ball, over the head ball. We can only score off throw-ins. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as you communicate it properly and you can sell your product. But if you can't sell it, then don't look to point the finger at the players. Then in the end, try to look at what you can do better to make sure that you sell your product a little bit better. So, so if that makes any sense to you, then that's probably how it started to split into different areas. So, I have a lot of respect for Gary. He's been in the business a long time. He's played with plenty of friends of mine from Lowy up in Newcastle to Rod Brown. He has respect within the football community. I know him and Graham Arnold have been kicking around for a lot of years as well. So I do believe that I know that he knows what he's talking about. It's just timing and where we were in the situation that maybe didn't work out the best for the Newcastle Jets, which is the most important thing.
You've also moved to the other side of football after playing to that sort of coaching management role. So when you first started to transition into that role, what sort of approach did you have to take differently to what you did when you were a player?
Well, I mean, I've tried not to overcomplicate it too much. I try to still be myself. There's a lot of people I feel within football that have over time become something different. So I try to stick to my core values, and that's when we're having this conversation here and now, that I give as much as I can give to a point, and make sure that you feel that there's a genuineness and an honesty coming out of me, because I think in the long run, and this might be an old cliche, but your word is your bond. And if you break your word and you go against your word, then what is it worth? Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't mind finishing up as an old man or passed on to the next place, and someone says, "Oh, what was he like?" And I said, "Well, when he spoke words, then he spoke them truthfully, and he never went back on his word. And if he said he was going to do something, then he did it." So I try to stick to those values. Of course, there's a balance between what's good for the football club, what's good for the player, and you have to try to balance those areas as well. I'm lucky enough that I've played at a high level, so I understand a lot of what's coming through and what that player is trying to achieve, and also what the club is trying to get out of not just the player, but the community and all kinds of things. So there's an amalgamation of a lot of things that are going on. But I think when it comes down to it, it comes down to who you are as a person. I've tried not to change any of that. But I would say that my messaging on who needs to hear certain information and who doesn't has definitely developed, because some people don't need to hear the truth, and if they're good or not good at what they do within football at all, we can just encourage them because they're in football and they're trying to have a go at it, and why not just encourage them? But there's definitely moments where I feel that, okay, I need to take responsibility and or learn and grow as well from, I coach some kids right now. They're not at the highest level, but at the same time, you can always learn something from them. A teaching mechanism, something that you think, okay, the communication I've given now worked a lot better than saying it in this particular pattern. Now they're learning it a lot better. Why didn't I think of that before? So there's always learning going on. It's just if you're actually thinking about learning at the same time. So a lot of people are out there throwing around cones and balls and whatnot, and off we go, and and you get to the end of it and go, okay, what did you get out of it? What did the players get out of it? Other than sometimes maybe just, they got to kick a ball, but what did we achieve today? So what can we get out of this that we get just a little building block, whether it's to the players and it can always be for the coaches. Trust me, there's so much learning out there. It's crazy. So yeah, if that makes any sense to you whatsoever.
Now, finally, I know you hinted a little bit earlier that you like to kind of shy away from talking about your achievements and all that sort of thing. But looking back on your whole playing career, even management career, what sort of achievements would you say that you have? And what would you say are the biggest ones?
Yeah.
Is there a moment to you that sticks out as your fondest memory, your proudest memory that makes you just feel happy that you got to do it, just be happy that you got to be a footballer?
Well, I think there's probably a few, of course, that's probably stand out more than any, which is, we won the championship in the '97 season with the Strikers, and that was pretty much my first year in football. So I was like, wow, this is going to be awesome. Little did you know that that's the first and last championship that you win. Do you know what I mean? So, but to win one was, a great memory to have. I still talk with some of those old guys, so I can still taste the crisp May weather when we played that game, or June, early June. I can remember driving to the stadium that day and then realizing when I got to the stadium that, we're taking a bus from our training grounds. I was like, okay, I got to drive to the training ground now. And I thought I was going to be late. So there's silly memories involved within those. And then, I went on to the Glory. The Glory was an awesome organization, still are. We were getting 17, 18. We were packing out, NIB Stadium at the time. There was just a real atmosphere out there. We made the final in 2000, and it was awesome. We leading 3-0 at halftime. We ended up losing it on penalties, sudden death penalties. You couldn't get more exciting of a game. People like Scotty Chipperfield playing for the Wollongong Wolves, who went on to have a great career in Basel and Socceroos. Even though we lost the game, it's still a great memory. There's still fond memories of the club. I'm sort of attached to all my clubs. I never sort of forget them and what they did for me as well. Going on, of course, I had the Olympics in between. That was a great memory to have, but I regret a little bit as well, a bit of a sadness there, because we never really progressed and we never reached the potential of what the team could have done. And anything other than that, the fondness of moving abroad, living here in Norway, meeting my girlfriend, wife. We've been together 13 years. Might as well just call her wife. Doesn't really matter. And all the teams that I've played for here too. I've still got lots of friends over here, and we catch up. I'm going on a end of year trip, a reunion trip with some boys in a month from now. We're taking the boat from Oslo to Copenhagen, so there'll be some cards and a few drinking games and whatnot. And one of them said to me, so who do you want to room with? You want to room with Paul or Peter or John? And I said, are we a little bit old to be rooming with people these days? I said, no, we're going right back to 2004 with this trip. So I was like, okay, that far we're going back. So I'll have to get my drinking goggles on, because we were probably a lot more active back in those days, and having a drink after a game, whatnot, than I am these days. So, but there's good memories from those teams, and the coaches I had. I still go out and commentate some of the football games here in Norway. So, like I said, overall, my journey's been, more than satisfactory. Loved every bit of it. Still lots to go. I'm a football person. There's nothing else that I am passionate about. There's nothing else that I want to do. So this is me. Do you know what I mean? It won't change from here. It'll only be football, and more football. And like I said, I watched the Socceroos yesterday on TV. There's European qualifiers this week for the World Cup. There'll be Champions League coming after that. And that's the great thing about being in Europe in the long run, is that come Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, there's football on. The weekend comes, there's more football. So that's what I'm passionate about. That's why I love being over here in Europe as well. And, it'll continue for long to come, I hope.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Kasey. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No worries, Shannon. Anytime, mate. Take care of yourself.
Thank you for watching. This video is sponsored by Arrow Sport. Go to the link in the description, and the friendly team at Arrow Sport will help you create your own football dream jersey. Whether it's starting from scratch or using one of their many templates on their website, creating a jersey with Arrow Sports is easy, and prices start from just $50. Go to www.arrowsport.com.au and make your football kit dreams become a reality.